I pressed play on the reel-to-reel recorder for the 10,000th time. The tape was from August 17, 1976, 48 years old now. The magnetic coating was degrading. Soon, it would be unplayable. But I needed to hear it again. Needed to remember why I'd kept this secret for nearly 5 decades. The recording started with forest sounds, wind in the pines, distant creek, birds. Then my voice. Can you tell me what you think about humans? About my kind? Long pause, then the response. Not words, not English, but vocalizations, low, rhythmic, deliberate. Sounds I'd learned to interpret over 3 years of weekly meetings. And what those sounds meant, what that ancient being told me about humanity in the summer of 1976, was so disturbing, so damning, so absolutely true that I'd never found the courage to share it. Until now, because he was right about all of it. And 48 years later, watching the world burn exactly as he predicted, I can't stay silent anymore. My name is Dr. Raymond Foster. I'm 74 years old, retired professor of linguistics from UC Berkeley. In 1973, when I was 26 and freshly out of grad school, I moved to a research cabin in the Olympic National Forest to study animal communication patterns. What I actually ended up studying, what I spent 3 years recording and analyzing, was communication with a species that wasn't supposed to exist, a species that understood humans better than we understood ourselves. And what they told me about us should terrify everyone. Let me start at the beginning. June 1973, I'd received a small grant to study vocalization patterns in Pacific Northwest wildlife, primarily wolves, ravens, and elk. The idea was to identify potential proto-linguistic structures in animal communication, determine if any species showed signs of grammar, syntax, or symbolic representation. Standard academic research. Safe. Publishable. I set up in a Forest Service cabin 40 miles from the nearest town. Solar panels for basic electricity. A gas generator for the recording equipment. Microphones positioned throughout the surrounding forest. Reel-to-reel tape recorders running continuously. I was documenting everything, every howl, every call, every sound the forest made. The first few months were routine. I cataloged wolf packs, recorded raven communications, documented elk mating calls, exactly what I'd expected. Then, in September 1973, I captured something I couldn't explain. It was on tape 47, recorded September 23rd at 3:17 a.m. A vocalization, deep, resonant, structured. It wasn't wolf, wrong frequency, wrong pattern. Wasn't bear, too complex, too deliberate. Wasn't elk or any other known animal. It was something else, and it was speaking, not random sounds. Actual communication with clear rhythm, repetition, and what sounded like intentional variation. I became obsessed. Repositioned microphones toward where the sound had originated, waited. 3 weeks later, I captured it again. Same pattern, same structure, but different content. The sounds varied in ways that suggested meaning, not just instinctual calls. Over the next 2 months, I recorded 17 separate instances, always at night, always from the same general area, about 2 miles northeast of my cabin, always showing the same structured patterns. I started analyzing them like language, breaking them into phonemes, identifying potential morphemes, looking for grammar. And I found it. Clear patterns, repetition that suggested vocabulary, variations that suggested syntax. This wasn't animal communication, this was language, sophisticated language from a source I couldn't identify. In December 1973, I decided to make contact. I was young, stupid, and too excited about my discovery to be cautious. I hiked to the area where the vocalizations originated, set up a powerful speaker system, and played back the recordings I'd made, attempting communication, showing I was listening, inviting response. Nothing happened for 3 days. Then, on the 4th night, he appeared. I was by my speaker playing a recording When I heard movement behind me, turned, and there he was, standing at the edge of my light, 9 feet tall. Massive shoulders covered in dark brown hair, face remarkably human, intelligent eyes, expressive features, but proportions all wrong, too heavy in the brow, too wide in the jaw, a Sasquatch. Bigfoot. The creature science said didn't exist. We stared at each other. I should have run, should have been terrified. But I wasn't, because his posture wasn't threatening. He was curious, cautious, and his eyes showed clear intelligence, clear awareness, clear interest in what I was doing. I did something insane. I pointed at the speaker, made a questioning gesture, trying to ask, "Was that you? Did you make those sounds?" He made a sound, similar to what I'd recorded, but directed at me, responsive, answering, yes. That was me. I nearly collapsed from the implications. I'd made contact. Actual contact with an unknown hominid species, a species with language, with culture, with intelligence. Over the following weeks, we developed a routine. I'd go to the clearing. He'd appear after dark. I'd play recordings, try different sounds, attempt communication. He'd respond, correct me, teach me. Slowly, painfully slowly, we built a shared vocabulary. The process was fascinating and frustrating. His vocalizations used frequencies I could barely produce, deep chest resonances that required breathing techniques I had to learn through trial and error. He was patient, more patient than any human teacher I'd known. When I got a sound wrong, he'd repeat it slowly, break it down, demonstrate the mouth position, the breathing pattern, like teaching a child to speak. I started keeping detailed phonetic logs, breaking his vocalizations into component sounds, identifying which ones corresponded to objects, actions, concepts. I discovered he had different sounds for tree versus forest, for rain versus storm. His language had nuance mine lacked, precision about the natural world that English couldn't match. He learned some of my sounds too. Could produce approximations of simple English words. Yes, no, friend, danger. But his vocal anatomy limited him. He couldn't produce certain consonants, couldn't make the th sound or hard K sounds. So we compromised, created a pidgin that borrowed from both languages. The breakthrough came in February 1974. We'd been meeting twice a week for 3 months. I'd brought a notebook with drawings, tried to communicate complex ideas through pictures, drew a stick figure representing me, another representing him, then drew them side by side, pointed to it, made a questioning sound we'd established meant, "What is this?" He looked at the drawing for a long moment, then made a sound I hadn't heard before, a specific vocalization, gestured to the drawing, to me, to himself, then repeated the sound. It meant friendship, or maybe alliance, or perhaps mutual understanding. The translation was imperfect, but the concept was clear. He was naming our relationship. Acknowledging it had moved beyond curiosity into connection. I recorded that moment, the exact sound, the context, the emotion in his vocalization. It became a cornerstone of our communication, a reference point. When things got difficult, when we couldn't find words for complex ideas, we'd come back to that sound, that acknowledgement of our bond. By spring 1974, we could have basic conversations. I learned his name, or what I interpreted as his name, a sound like ka-room, low rumble, rising tone, ending with a nasal hum. I practiced it for weeks before he nodded approval, confirmed I was saying it correctly. I taught him mine, Raymond, but he couldn't produce the R or the D sound properly, so it became Imon. Close enough. He'd gesture to me and make that sound. I'd gesture to him and make his sound. Names, identity, recognition of individual existence. He couldn't speak English. His vocal anatomy was different. I couldn't perfectly replicate his sounds. My throat wasn't built for those frequencies. But we found middle ground, a pidgin language combining his vocalizations with my attempts. supplemented by gestures, by drawings in dirt, by shared patience. The conversations evolved. Started with concrete things: food, water, cold, hot. Expanded to actions: walk, sleep, hunt, eat. Then to abstractions: safe, danger, good, bad. Each new concept required creativity, required finding sounds or gestures we could both produce and understand. I taught him about technology, showed him the tape recorder, played back his voice. His reaction was remarkable: surprise, fascination, recognition. He understood immediately what it was: a device that captured and replayed sound. He made a vocalization that roughly meant memory in object form, more poetic than my explanation. He taught me about his world, about echolocation through vocalizations, how his people could navigate in total darkness using sound, about scent communication, information conveyed through smell that I couldn't detect but was obvious to him, about social structures in his community based on age and accumulated knowledge rather than physical dominance. We talked about simple things: food, weather, the forest, building trust, building understanding, each conversation adding vocabulary, adding context, adding depth to our communication. Then came the deeper conversations, the ones that changed everything I thought I knew about the world. In June 1974, I asked him about his people. How many were there? Where did they live? Why did they hide from humans? The answer was complex, communicated over multiple sessions, but the core message was clear. His people had been here for hundreds of thousands of years. Long before modern humans arrived in North America, they'd watched us come, watched us spread, and made a conscious decision to hide, to retreat into the deepest wilderness, to avoid contact, except in rare circumstances. Why hide? I asked. Why not make contact, share the land? His response, translated through our pidgin and interpreted as best I could, was chilling. We've seen what you do to each other, to other species, to the land. You destroy everything you touch. We hide to survive. That was the first hint of what was coming. The observations, the judgments, the devastating analysis of humanity from a species that had been watching us for millennia. Over the next 2 years, I recorded over 300 hours of conversations with Karum, all on reel-to-reel tape, all carefully documented. And slowly, piece by piece, he shared his people's understanding of humans, what they'd observed, what they'd concluded, what they predicted. The recording I mentioned at the start, August 17, 1976, was the culmination. I'd built enough trust, learned enough vocabulary. And I asked the question directly: what do you think about humans? About my kind? What he told me, what I recorded that night, was the most comprehensive, devastating, and accurate analysis of human nature I've ever encountered. And he delivered it with something like sadness, like grief for what we were, what we'd become, what we would inevitably do. Let me share what he said, translated as best I can. Condensed from 3 hours of conversation. Your kind is brilliant but broken. You have intelligence beyond most species. You can create, build, imagine futures, but you've lost connection to what matters. You've become clever without wisdom. We've watched you for thousands of your generations, watched you spread across the land, and we've seen patterns repeat, always the same patterns, always ending the same way. First pattern: you never have enough. Other species take what they need and stop. You take what you need, then take more, then more. Never satisfied, never content, always wanting, always consuming. You call it progress. We call it sickness. Second pattern: you fight yourselves. Other species fight for food, territory, mates. You fight for ideas, for beliefs, for things that don't exist. You kill your own kind over thoughts, over words. We don't understand this. It seems insane to us. Third pattern: you forget your animals. You think you're separate from nature, above it. You poison your own water, Destroy your own food sources. Eliminate other species you depend on. Then seem surprised when you suffer. Every other species knows. Harm the land, harm yourself, you've forgotten this, or you never learned it. Fourth pattern, you live for tomorrow instead of today. You sacrifice present joy for future wealth, present connection for future success. Then you reach the future and do the same thing. Tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes, and you die having never lived. Fifth pattern, you complicate everything. Simple things. Eating, sleeping, mating, raising young, living in groups. You make complex. Create rules, create systems, create problems that don't need to exist. Then spend all your energy solving problems you created. You're running in circles, getting nowhere, exhausting yourselves. Sixth pattern, you can't be still, can't be quiet, can't be content, always moving, always talking, always doing. You've lost the ability to simply exist, to be present, to experience the moment. You're addicted to stimulation, to distraction, to anything except the present moment. And the most disturbing pattern, the one that tells us you won't survive long, you know all this. Your wise ones have said these things for generations, but you don't change. You can't change. You hear the truth, agree with the truth, then go back to the same patterns, like you're trapped, like something inside drives you toward destruction and you can't stop. We've seen this before, not in your species, you're too young, but in other dominant species over the millennia. We've watched 7 other species rise to dominance in our territories. All showed the same patterns, all ended the same way, collapsed, died out, destroyed themselves through their own excess. You're following the same path, and we know how it ends. In maybe 10 generations, maybe less, your kind will face collapse. Not from outside threats, from internal failure, from the accumulation of your patterns, from systems too complex to maintain, from damage too deep to repair, from habits you can't break. We feel sadness for you, not pity. You're too dangerous for pity, but sadness. Because you have such potential, such intelligence, such capability, and you're wasting it, destroying yourselves, and taking so much else with you. We've stopped trying to understand you, stopped wondering why you do these things. Now we just watch, and wait, and prepare for what comes after you, because something always comes after. The land heals, new species adapt, life continues, just without the ones who couldn't learn balance, couldn't learn limits, couldn't learn to simply be. That was what he told me in August 1976. I have it all on tape. 3 hours of the most profound, disturbing, accurate analysis of human civilization I've ever heard. From a species we dismiss as myth, as primitive, as less than. And the worst part? He was right. About all of it. I spent the next year trying to process it, trying to deny it, trying to find flaws in his logic, but I couldn't. Every pattern he identified, I could see in myself, in my culture, in human history, in the world around me. The never having enough, I saw it in capitalism, in consumerism, in my own inability to be satisfied with what I had. I'd gotten the research grant, should have been satisfied, but immediately started planning the next grant, the next project, the next achievement, never content, always wanting more. Karam was right. The fighting over ideas, I saw it in politics, in religion, in the academic backstabbing I'd witnessed in grad school. Professors destroying each other's careers over theoretical disagreements. Vietnam War protests turning violent. People killing each other over concepts like capitalism versus communism, ideas you couldn't eat or touch or prove. We fought over thoughts. Other species didn't do that. Only us. The forgetting we're animals, I saw it in environmental destruction, in climate change denial that was already starting in the 70s, in the arrogant assumption that we could break natural laws without consequences. DDT poisoning eagles, rivers catching fire from pollution, clear-cutting entire forests, Then scientists saying, we might have a problem. And people responding, the economy is more important. Insanity. Suicidal insanity. The living for tomorrow, I saw it in my own life every single day, always working toward the next degree, the next publication, the next achievement. Never present, never satisfied. I deferred happiness my entire life. I'll be happy when I finish my undergrad, when I get my master's, when I get my PhD, when I get this grant. Always tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. I was 27 and had never lived in the present moment, not once. The complications, I saw it everywhere. Systems upon systems upon systems, each solving problems created by the previous system. Government bureaucracies with thousands of rules that contradicted each other. Technology that required specialists to repair it. Social expectations that required manuals to navigate. Karam's people lived in family groups, found food, ate it, slept when tired, mated when ready, raised children together, simple, effective. We'd taken all those simple things and made them impossible. Needed jobs to get money to buy food that was everywhere in nature. Needed alarm clocks to wake up on schedule. Needed marriage licenses and divorce lawyers. We'd created hell through complications. The inability to be still, I saw it in myself every time I tried to meditate, to just sit quietly, and felt the overwhelming urge to do something, anything, to fill the silence. Couldn't sit still for 5 minutes without feeling antsy, anxious, wrong. Like stillness was death. Like constant motion was the only proof of being alive. My mind never stopped, never quieted, always racing, always planning, always worried about past or future, never here, never now. And the most damning pattern, knowing but not changing, I saw it in myself, daily, agreeing with his analysis, understanding it was true, intellectually accepting every single point he made, then going right back to my old patterns. Like an addiction I couldn't break. Like watching myself destroy my own life from outside my body, knowing what I should do, unable to do it. I started an experiment in December 1976. Tried to live according to Karam's principles. Take only what I needed, be present, simplify, stop fighting over ideas, accept my animal nature, be still sometimes. I lasted 3 days. 3 days before the anxiety became unbearable, before the simplicity felt like poverty, before the stillness felt like wasting time, before I went right back to my complicated, future-focused, never-satisfied existence. Karam had said we were trapped, that something inside drove us toward destruction, and we couldn't stop. I disagreed in the moment, thought, no, we have free will, we can choose differently. But I couldn't, even understanding the problem completely, even wanting desperately to change, even having a clear roadmap of what to do differently. I couldn't sustain it. The patterns were too deep, too ingrained, too fundamental to who I was as a human. That's when I truly understood how doomed we were, not because we didn't know better, but because knowing didn't help. We were like alcoholics who understood alcohol was killing them, but couldn't stop drinking, like smokers who saw the evidence but couldn't quit, like gamblers who knew the house always wins but kept playing. We were addicted to our own destruction, and awareness of the addiction didn't cure it. I ended my research in 1977, told the grant committee I hadn't found significant evidence of proto-linguistic structures in animal communication. A lie. But I couldn't tell the truth, couldn't reveal Karam, couldn't expose his people to the exact destructive patterns he'd described. I returned to academic life, got tenure at Berkeley, published papers on safe topics, had a career, retired, and kept the tapes locked in a safe deposit box for 47 years. I saw Karam one final time before I left, December 1976. I told him I was leaving, that I couldn't stay, that knowing what he'd told me made it too hard to function in human society. He understood, made a sound I'd learned meant sadness mixed with acceptance. Then said something I'll never forget. You're one of the few who listened, who heard truth and didn't become angry. That gives us small hope. Maybe some of your kind can learn. Maybe enough will learn in time. But probably not. History says probably not. That was 47 years ago. I'm 74 now, and I'm watching Karum's predictions come true. The climate collapse, the resource depletion, the fighting over ideas while the world burns, the complexity overwhelming our ability to manage it, the inability to change course despite knowing we must. He was right about all of it, and I have the tapes to prove it. I'm releasing this now, releasing the recordings, the transcripts, everything, because we're running out of time. Not to save ourselves. Karum made it clear we probably can't, but maybe to preserve his wisdom, his observations, his analysis, so that whatever comes after us might learn from our mistakes. A species we considered primitive observed us for millennia, identified our fatal flaws with perfect accuracy, predicted our collapse, and we dismissed them as myth while proving everything they said about us was true. That's the disturbing truth I captured in the 1970s. Not that Bigfoot exists, though that's extraordinary enough, but that they understand us better than we understand ourselves, that they've watched us repeat patterns that always end in collapse, and that we're doing it again, right now, exactly as predicted. I recorded conversations with Bigfoot in the 70s. What he told me about humans wasn't myth or superstition. It was the most accurate, devastating, prophetic analysis of our species ever delivered. And the most disturbing part? We'll prove him right. We're already proving him right. We can't help it. It's who we are. It's what we do. God, help us. Because Karum made it clear, we won't help ourselves.